The heavy oak doors of the law office felt more like the gates of a courtroom. I stood there, my hands trembling inside my coat pockets, while my father, Richard, paced the floor like a wolf tasting who had made millions in real estate but lived like a humble librarian. He had no children of his own. For the last 10 years, while he battled a progressive illness, my father hadn't visited him once. Not a single phone call. I, on the other hand, had moved into Arthur's guest house, cooked his meals, taken him to chemotherapy, and held his hand when he took his last breath. To my father, however, none of that mattered. The only thing that mattered was the reading of the will today. Just remember, Richard whispered harshly, leaning close to me, his breath smelling. If he tried to give any of it to those charity nonsense groups, I'll contest it. And don't you dare speak out of turn. Before I could answer, the inner office door clicked open. Mr. Vance, Uncle Arthur's lifelong attorney, walked out. He looked exhausted, carrying a thick leather folder. He didn't smile. He simply gestured for us to sit down across from his massive mahogany desk. My father practically threw himself into the leather chair, leaning forward, his eyes locked on the folder. I sat down quietly beside him, feeling a deep, aching sadness. I didn't care about the millions. I just missed my uncle's gentle laugh. Mr. Vance adjusted his spectacles, cleared his throat, and opened the folder. Richard, Clara, Mr. Vance began, looking at both of us. Arthur was a meticulous man. He updated his will frequently to reflect his life changes. The final version was signed and notarized exactly 1 month ago. Get to the point, Vance, my father urged, tapping his fingers impatiently on the armrest. How is the estate divided? Mr. Vance shot my father a cold look over his glasses. He began reading the standard legal jargon, but quickly moved to the core of the document. To my brother, Richard, Mr. Vance read, I leave the sum of $50,000. My father gasped, his face instantly turning a violent shade of crimson. 50,000, that's a typo. He's worth 30 million. He promised me a partnership. He promised me. Richard, let me finish, Mr. Vance interrupted, his voice dropping an octave. He turned the page, and suddenly, his eyes widened. The lawyer completely froze. The words seemed to die in his throat. He stared at the paper, his mouth slightly open, blinking rapidly as if he couldn't believe what was written. The silence in the room became deafening. Vance, what is it? What does it say? My father demanded, standing up and leaning over the desk to peek at the paper. Mr. Vance slowly looked up from the document. But he didn't look at my father. He looked directly at me. His expression was a mix of profound shock and immense sorrow. Clara, Mr. Vance said softly, his voice trembling slightly. The remainder of the estate, including the real estate portfolio, the offshore accounts, and the family estate, totaling roughly $28 million, is left entirely to you. However, there is a stipulation added by your uncle. My father let out a harsh, bitter laugh. Well, that's fine. She's my daughter. It stays in the immediate family. We can manage that together. No, Richard, you don't understand, Mr. Vance said, his eyes still fixed on me. He picked up a secondary document attached to the will, a certified DNA report. Arthur included this as part of the public record. He wanted it read aloud. Mr. Vance cleared his throat, though it sounded like he was choking. Arthur writes, I leave everything to Clara, not just because she loved me when no one else did, but because she is my true biological daughter. 24 years ago, Richard, you had an affair and left for 3 months. During that time, your wife and I found comfort in each other. Clara is my child. I have kept this secret to protect her, but I will not let my wealth go to a man who is neither a brother to me, nor a father to her. The room felt like it had lost all oxygen. The walls seemed to close in. I sat frozen, the blood rushing in my ears. The man I had called Dad, my entire life wasn't my father. The gentle uncle who had raised me and guided me was actually my biological dad. My father, Richard, turned around slowly. The anger on his face morphed into pure, unadulterated hatred. His fists were clenched so tightly his knuckles turned white. He looked at me not as a child he had raised, but as a parasite, a physical manifestation of a betrayal he never saw coming. You're no daughter of mine, he roared, his voice echoing off the office walls. He stepped toward me, his face twisted in rage. You and your pathetic mother. You cheated me, you stole my life, and now you're stealing my inheritance. You're a bastard, Clara. You hear me? A bastard. Richard, sit down or I will call security. Mr. Vance shouted, slamming his hand on the desk. But Richard didn't care. He spat on the floor right in front of my shoes, glared at me one last time with eyes full of venom, and stormed out of the office, slamming the heavy oak doors so hard the glass rattled. The silence returned, heavier this time. I sat there, tears finally spilling over my eyelashes, blurring my vision. My entire identity had been dismantled in less than 5 minutes. Mr. Vance walked around the desk and handed me a tissue, placing a comforting hand on my shoulder. I'm sorry you had to find out this way, Clara. But Arthur wanted you to know the truth. He wanted you to know that you were never just a niece to him. You were his greatest joy. I looked down at the documents, at the signature of the man who had loved me enough to protect me, and then give me everything. My father had walked out the door, but for the first time in my life, I realized I had never been fatherless. I smiled through the tears, knowing I was finally home.